I get it. It was out of your control, but you still slapped me. You know what I mean? So it's like we still need to talk about that.
Hey everyone, welcome to the BPD Bunch. I'm your host, Zanny, and today I am here with Jack and his siblings, Derrick, Grant, and Alicia, Mo and her brother Shawn, Madhurima and her sister Madhuja. Where in the world is everyone coming from today?
Hi, I'm Jack. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hello everyone, I'm Alicia. I'm Marlon's little sister.
Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Atlanta as well.
My real name is Marlon, so all my siblings, Derrick, Grant, and Alicia, be calling me by my real name, Marlon.
Yo, my name is Grant. I'm Marlon's little brother, and I'm also in Atlanta.
And I'm Derrick, also Marlon's little brother, and I'm in Houston, Texas.
I'm Mo. My real name is Michelle, so you might hear my brother Shawn call me Michelle. And I'm from Central Ohio.
And hi, my name is Madhurima, and I'm from Kolkata, and my name is Madhuja. Nice to meet you.
And I'm coming from New Mexico in the United States. So if you couldn't already tell, today's episode is going to be all about BPD and sibling relationships. If this or other BPD-related topics interest you, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you do not miss anything. To start us off, how did BPD affect your relationship with each other?
In our case, my sister was diagnosed with BPD in 2019, which was a year before COVID. And before that, things were a bit rough with our relationship and it didn't really work perfectly. But after COVID, there was a forced proximity that we had to go through. So after COVID, we just realized how important we are to each other. And like we had more meaningful conversations. And sometimes it just involved like watching TV shows together and like increasing our relationship to a level that did not involve just tolerating each other's presence.
I think the most important breakthrough that we had, like she said, that we were forced to tolerate each other's presence. But it was also a time that made me want to become a more present person in my sister's life because I also realized how much of her life I was missing out on and how much of my life she was missing out on. And at first we didn't realize it, but like I think there was this whole month after lockdown began that we used to watch Game of Thrones together from like 10:30 at night to 4 in the morning every day, and we finished like 8 seasons of Game of Thrones in 20 days. And I think that was the first time after I was diagnosed with BPD where I thought, okay, my sister is also my friend. And I think that is a very impactful time in our relationship because, yeah, and she's my best friend now. So
you talked about how things were after COVID. I'm curious what your relationship was like before the diagnosis and COVID.
before COVID, like I got diagnosed with BPD in 2019. And before that, I was really, really struggling. I was not being my very best self. I had absolutely zero self esteem and zero self love. I thought I deserved the worst or I didn't deserve anything at all. So I was getting drunk and coming back home late and like being a real disappointment, as they say. I tried my level best to shut everyone off from my life. Like, I shut her out, I shut my parents out, I shut my friends out, and I tried to keep my world as concealed as possible so that nobody could get to see how much I was struggling. I could see it in their eyes, like in my mother's eyes and in her eyes, that they were disappointed in me. But that gave me an odd kind of, like, I shouldn't say satisfaction, but it it just gave me some relief because I thought that, they're seeing the worst version of me and it can't get any worse than that. So if they're tolerating this version of me, maybe they're not going to leave me like everybody else does. But that was not fair. And I made them go through a lot of things. And I think that's when I started therapy. And then COVID happened, and then I had to sit at home, and then I got to work on myself. So I'm really grateful because I got to cultivate this very nice relationship with my family and especially with my sister because I have always loved her more than anybody else in this whole world, but I just didn't know how to show it. And I'm so glad that I do now.
When I was growing up, I don't think Shawn and I were super close because he's 5.5 years older than me and he's a boy. So we didn't bond the way I think a lot of other siblings might bond if they're closer in age, But when I was like an older teenager and young adult, that's when my BPD symptoms started to really show. And so obviously I had a lot of intense emotions. And my brother Shawn has always kind of been more level-headed and more rational. And so I used to kind of like, I didn't understand him. And I just felt like we were like on a different planet or something. He just always seemed to have control over most of his emotions and stuff. I kind of got like jealous because it just made no sense to me that someone could be like steady, After I got diagnosed, we got a little bit closer. I think maybe because we were both older. And so that age gap isn't as much of an age gap. It used to drive me nuts that he didn't seem to have as many emotions as I do. But now I kind of like it because if I need someone who is like more rational and less emotional, I can go to him with advice or if I'm having a problem and he'll just like straight up give me the answer. He won't tell me what I want to hear. He'll tell me the truth, So he's like my wise brother,
Growing up and even still to this day, I do feel like I'm the older brother. So my mentality around it is not even so much that there's anything wrong with her. It's just my mentality towards it is more of like a protective role. So even when we were kids, even before anything was thought of or diagnosed, it was just my job to be the bigger brother. So, and like she said, I'm that much older than her. So when she did need protection, I felt like, well, I'm bigger, so I can do that. But that's kind of my personality anyways. I do that with anybody in my family. So like she said, I try to keep things in my head at an even keel. When people lose their patience and things, I've seen too many people do the wrong thing just because they're that upset in that moment or whatever. So it's not that I don't lose it once in a while, because I do. But I usually am the type of person to kind of think, if you can think it out first, maybe you don't create so much chaos and maybe you can help somebody keep their head a little bit more level. So she is right. I try to tend to not lose my mind, but I think we all do that from time to time,
There was this one time we got in a fight, like not like a physical fight, but we started arguing about something. And I remember I was just so mad at him. I was like pissed and I was ready to like physically fight him. And I think I did like hit him, but he's my older brother. And he like basically, he didn't hit me back, but he did like, he stood over me and he let me know, like he put me in check. Like, you're not doing this. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to mess with him now. But I stayed so mad at him because I'm like, F him. Like he thinks just because he's bigger and older, like he can like, threaten me and stuff. And like, I used to hate that because like I did have anger issues and stuff, but he always kept me in check. Like I kind of knew after that not to mess with him. Like, so, that part sucked. And honestly, like I do remember when I was in the psych ward, like this was about 20 years ago, when I was in the psych ward, he was one of the people that I thought about a lot because I kept worrying about like maybe how my family would perceive me and stuff. And I always thought that maybe he would like be ashamed of me and like disappointed in me because again, he doesn't have like as intense emotions as I do. And I just thought like, he's just never going to like look at me the same. I'm always going to be the crazy little sister,
We come from a very, very loving family. And Mo, like you were saying, when you first started, we've known that he struggled with something since he was younger, but we didn't recognize necessarily like specifically that it was BPD until just a few years ago. I'm not sure if you guys know, but he is sober right now. And I just stopped smoking also at the end of last year. And I've been smoking since I was a kid. And that was one of the main things that we used to do to bond with each other was to get high together. Marijuana, I'm gonna say, not anything else. But to me, that was the best way that we could, that he could open up to me and talk. From my perspective, like in Black households, is kind of a different topic to tackle when it comes to mental health. But the difference between just being in a Black family and then coming from our family is that we have a different kind of love than other people would normally have. So we understood, but we still didn't understand, if that makes sense. It was a struggle in the beginning trying to figure out how we could be there for him and really understand what he was going through, because we'd be cooking in the kitchen, the whole family, and then he might be having like an episode and just been to himself the whole day to where we haven't seen him, and he comes out of nowhere and he just has like a dark energy around him, and it just kind of like doesn't match with what we're working with in the kitchen, if that makes sense. And it'd be really random, and then we would have to catch ourselves and be like, okay, we're not gonna retaliate, we're not gonna get mad because he's in the mood right now, we're not gonna like use it against him. We're just kind of gonna just, be easy about it. Make sure that he's okay. Did we do anything wrong? No? Cool. We're gonna just ease on to the left. We're gonna keep you on the right. And if you need anything from us, hey, let us know.
I'm pretty young. There's a pretty large age gap between me and Marlon. Once I learned that he has BPD, a boundary went up because I didn't know how to work around it. I didn't know how to treat it or treat him or act around him. Certain things that I say, I think I say it lightly. I try to keep things positive rather than try to turn things negatively, And I think Grant and Derrick, and even you can attest to that. But gradually over time, as I'm spending more time with my brother, it's like I'm learning new characteristics or just new attributes about him that I might get a little concerned about, but we're a praying family, so we definitely keep Marlon in our prayers and everything. I'm learning how I can be some sort of light or some sort of help as his little sister.
I think I'm gonna preface this with two quick things. One is that me and Marlon are 3 years apart. His dad and my mom got married when he was 7 and I was 4. At least for me, I've always felt like we're the same age, whether I felt a little bit older sometimes or he felt a little bit younger. Like we were very close. And the second thing is, out of all 4 of us right here, we all have like different relationships with each other. Like my relationship with Grant is not the same relationship that Grant and Alicia have, and so when I learned what BPD actually was, when I'm reading these symptoms, I'm reading them and I'm just like, yeah, that happened once or twice. Okay, I could see that happen. I didn't know that was it. I feel like Marlon's actually been very level-headed, you know what I'm saying, like the last few years, as opposed to like, our high school, early 20s and stuff like that. But in that time, he didn't know how to voice what was going on inside of his head. And I damn sure didn't know how to voice it, because that was one of those moments where I was the little brother. And so I was just like, bro, figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure that part made it rocky. I can accept that I made that very rocky because I was kind of just like, why are you sad, bro? Just be happy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just, to me, it was as simple as just like, all right, well, I'll be sad sometimes too, but let's figure this, like, keep it pushing. We have to keep going. Kind of how Mo said Shawn was, where I was very level-headed and not really understanding where his brain was, because he didn't really know where his brain was. I definitely didn't know where his brain was. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say never. Not until we got older did I take a step back and kind of say, I can be protective of him, you know what I'm saying? And I can be a little more lenient. But, kind of like Grant said, like I was saying with our relationships, me and Marlon, I don't smoke weed. I've never been that phase skipped me. I always say that. And so me and Marlon never had that, like, we were always very close, and we've always been like really, real tight with each other. But at the same time, we didn't have that one thing that we could use to like really mesh. And so I don't think we've ever been enemies, but I'm sure that had we been able to like understand what BPD was before, had we been talking about it when we were in middle school and elementary school and early years of high school, I think that our relationship would have been a lot tighter because he would have been able to voice his opinions and his thoughts and like where his brain was at better. And my selfish 14, 15, 16-year-old brain would have been able to slow down sometimes. And instead of just being like, he's doing whatever he's doing. You know what I'm saying? I got stuff to do. I would have been able to kind of slow down, and had those moments that Grant and Marlon had together.
Jack, Madhurima, and Mo, how do you feel that your BPD symptoms impacted your relationship with your sibling?
I don't know why, but even when I was a little kid, I always felt like everybody compared me to my older brother, and everybody like wished that I could be more like him because, I had ADHD when I was a kid. And so I was very hyper. And then, as a young adult, it turns out that I had BPD as well. And so I felt shame about that because I just kept thinking like, once again, I'm going to be compared to Shawn. And once again, I'm going to disappoint people and embarrass people and stuff, especially when I was in the psych ward for a few days. And so that shame didn't like directly affect my relationship with him. It just made me feel just embarrassed, I felt misunderstood, and it just made no sense to me that he and other people could just be so much more calm with their emotions. But now that I'm older, for one, I don't care if people compare me to anybody. I don't need their validation. But I also like truly appreciate that my brother is level-headed, because if we both had intense emotions, even now, like that my symptoms are controlled, it would just make it harder, I think, to navigate conflict and stuff.
Like Derrick said, because me and my siblings all have different relationships with each other. It just depends on my siblings. Like growing up, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little jealous of Derrick because he was so level-headed and so emotionally secure with himself that I wish I could have that. I would look at him like, why can't I be like that? What am I doing wrong and Derrick is doing right? With Alicia, I'm like, I gotta protect Alicia from my emotional outputs, from my emotional outbursts. I don't want her to end up like me in any type of way. Same with Grant. But with Grant, it's like I saw some of the things that I was dealing with that Grant was doing. It's like, what can I do to be the big brother that he desperately needed, that he wants to help guide him? I was putting stress on myself, just trying to figure out all these different things. And this is just with these siblings. I have other siblings as well. I was trying to think like, what can I do to help those siblings as well to protect them and be that big brother they needed, and still be open and true to myself.
For me, it was abandonment. Like, I think that was the symptom that just like that gets triggered even now. I find abandonment so frequently in my relationship with my sibling. Whenever she gets sick, like probably she has a fever, I get super mad at her because I'm like, you're not supposed to suffer. You are not supposed to go through all of these things. You're making me feel anxious about losing you, so it's completely your fault. I mean, I don't feel it so often now, but before I used to feel it very much, even when I was a little kid. I mean, I used to feel like I had to stay awake by her side all night, or what if she gets taken away by monsters? And I have to try my best to like get hold of her and keep her as close to me as possible. And I think the fear of abandonment went so bad that I started to create this wall between us so that I could tell people or myself that, you know what, it doesn't affect me. We're not that close anyway. But that was a lie because she was like the closest thing to me and she still is. But yeah, I think every point in my life I was so scared of losing her, and I still am, that I just have done more messed up things with her because I just didn't. I felt like she's going to be taken away from me, and I did not know how to deal with that.
So now to the siblings who don't have BPD, how have you perceived the emotional experiences of your sibling with BPD, and how do those emotions affect your interactions and how you approach your sibling?
I think our relationship is always the same, but when I do see her go through something, it kind of hurts my heart because I don't want to see my sister sad. And again, it's that protective instinct thing. So we have a family that we kind of have some anger things. And recently, actually, we were on a vacation and my dad upset my sister extreme, which actually triggered me to go extreme on my dad. And so anytime I see her go through something, it does trigger me in a way that like some others have said, like, I want her to feel better. So I want to do whatever it takes to make her feel better or stand up for her, which is the case of what my dad did to her this time. But anytime I see her go through anything, I just try to be there, like she said, kind of like a crutch, you know, like if you need some help, I want to be that person that you can come to or whatever. I'm a really straightforward guy too. Like I usually hold no punches when I explain something or I tell you something. Like I don't tiptoe around it. So I go at a very high pace all the time. I don't think I let it affect our relationship. She's busy. I'm busy. We both have kids. We both have families. But when we can get together, I think we just enjoy being together. I don't think there's any stress most of the time, or if there is, we just answer it and get over it and be done with it.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. So
Growing up, relationship with her, especially during the times before she got diagnosed, like a year or 2 years before that, talking to her, any relationship was equivalent to a hot war. It was like, if I talk about something, it would lead to something that would be so catastrophic. It would cause so much drama. Parents would be involved, grandparents would be involved. It's an Indian household. There's a lot of factors. And like, anytime she did not like speak to me the way I wanted her to speak to me, I got angry. Like, I didn't really look at her perspective or like try to understand what was going on in her brain and what was happening to her. I was like, you're not speaking to me in a good way. And I'm like the younger one. And you're giving me a look like you don't really care about what's happening to me. I don't care about what's happening to you too. But it used to be the exact opposite. Like, I felt so alienated from her life. I wanted to know who her friends were. I wanted to know everything about her life, but I was so scared and I never asked what was going on. And I also, like, the shutting each other out was a two-way process. I did the same thing. I didn't ask what was going on. I didn't tell her anything about me. Like, I didn't tell her about what was happening in my school, what was affecting me, what we could do. It was just like, if I talk to her, there's going to be like a fight about the smallest things. Like, it could be something like borrowing a pen to a like really serious topic, and things would escalate really fast and involve a lot of people. So during that period, I would just like choose to not have any sort of communication with her. But that changed slowly when I was entering into like high school. Like when I was 16, 17, I started engaging more into the mental health, like what it meant, how it affects people. And then I tried to pay more attention to what she was going through instead of making things about me, and having a common ground that you say your part, I will say my part, and let's see if we can have a common ground and fix things.
My perception of the experience of being Marlon's brother, I would kind of jump back and forth between, like I said, being like the little brother to being the older brother. You know, there were times where 100% feel like, yeah, Marlon's the older brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to just follow his lead and kind of just do whatever he does. But then there would be those times where, you know, he would be feeling something and I feel like I would have to kind of step forward. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to just blame this on 14-year-old Derrick. I'm going to say, like, even to this day, there are times when I'm just like, hey, man, I'm not trying to hear that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're in this moment of life and I need you to hold it together. We need to be emotionally intelligent enough to be like, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. But it's like, either you gotta voice that, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, you might have to take a little walk. But then on the flip side, you know, there are moments where I would see him start to lash out and I would see other people's reaction to it. And that always pissed me off. You know, like the very first fight I ever got into was because somebody was messing with Marlon. And I've always taken a stance of like, I can make fun of Marlon because that's my brother and we've grown up together. So it's like, I can do that and he's just gonna have to deal with it. But that's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like and even if it was my parents, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes my parents would go off on Marlon a little bit too hard. And I'd be like, hey, time out. Hold on, bro. That's not going to fly with me. And so it was very tough. It was very tough. But the majority of the time, before we even knew, you know, that it was something called BPD, it was like, we got to figure out how we don't turn this into a crutch. You know what I'm saying? I think that's when the few arguments that me and him would get into would be kind of centered around just like, look, bro, like the world is ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's life was great. And nobody's life was picture perfect. Even the kid that you might think had everything in the world. You know, we had 2 parents in our household. That's amazing to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? We did a lot of family activities together. We have annual traditions that we did together and stuff like that. You can feel what you feel, but then sometimes it's like we have to figure out how we move forward, not just understanding where your emotions are, you know, learning how to cope with it and learning how to overcome the things, you know, that you're feeling. Sometimes it worked, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, you know, it would end with a hug or it would end in like a good moment. And then sometimes it would end with, I'm just not going to talk to you for a little bit because he knows where I'm coming from. I know where he's coming from. And I'm just like, all right, bro, like if that's how you're going to be, you know where I'm at.
Growing up in this household, as Grant was saying, like we are a very loving, family-oriented family. But I'd say we still had other conditions that our family members were battling. So for me, whenever I would see everyone else going through their emotions, I felt kind of silenced. Or not silenced, but I didn't really have anyone to sort of bring it up to or really just talk about it. You know, I don't think there was much open conversation whenever my brother would lash out or whenever my parents would argue or my brothers would fight, like little things like that. I just felt like I was sitting in the corner just watching everything go down and I never was able to bring it up. So it's like all these feelings or emotions or thoughts are kind of pushed down. But now with Marlon, as I got older and I'm realizing like this is just not normal to push things down like that or push away those conversations. And as I'm learning more about mental health, it's like you have to have these discussions and bring them up so that you can conquer them and figure out solutions and find a way to heal and so on and so on. So with Marlon, even though he still has his moments every now and then, part of me still gets a little quiet. In a way, I'll give him his space. But when he's calmed down a bit or when he's had a little bit of solitude or when he's had a little time to himself, that's when I'll try to approach him in a softer manner. Like, are you good, dude? Are you good? You want to talk about it? Because even in that moment, sometimes, like what Derrick was saying, there might be family members that egg on or add more fire to the flame. And it's like, y'all, he's not in his, I don't want to say in his right mind because that just sounds messed up, but he's just not in the right place right now. And you're not really seeing it from his angle, his point of view. And so if they're going back and forth, I would hate to pitch in and be like, yo, chill. Oh my gosh. Like, that's just going to add more fire to the flame. So it's like, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to check up on my brother once y'all calm down.
Unfortunately, it looks like we lost our connection to Grant. So while he will not be actively participating in the rest of this episode, we do have little recordings of him answering some of these questions, and we will be popping them in where it's appropriate. Here is Grant's recorded answer for this question.
It's a 50-50. Like, half of me looks at Marlon's BPD as like a cry for help. It looks like he's battling something that nobody else knows about and nobody in the world can help. And it makes me kind of like feel bad. You know what I'm saying? Like a sad feeling. And then the other part is just like how I react kind of goes back and forth between trying to help and also getting frustrated. Just going back to in the beginning, not really knowing what's going on. So reacting to the situations that may occur, not in the best way and not giving the true feedback that I should be giving or advice or just pat on the back.
Can you share a specific experience that strengthened your bond as siblings despite the challenges posed by BPD?
Talking shit. You know what I'm saying? Talking shit. Like I said earlier, we stopped smoking weed, and that was the biggest part of our bonding between the two of us. And that was a way that we could, you know, escape from reality, obviously, and just talk about whatever with no boundaries and no matter what we're going through. At the end of the day, we brothers, and we don't hold grudges. You know what I mean? We might go through what we go through, but it ain't never going to be a point to where we just holding that against each other and making that a reason to hate.
The one experience that jumps into my mind instantly, I don't remember why, but there was this one instance where my mom came home and she was pissed about something and she was going off. She went off on me for a little bit. And then she turned on Marlon, and like I swear, like her level went from like 7 to 10, and like she was going off on Marlon. She was just like, "Oh, you're the oldest. You're the oldest. You're supposed to know better." And I could see Marlon's reaction going on. I think it was one of the first times I ever cut my mom off, and I was just like, "Nah, we're not doing that right now." You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, first of all, I'm old enough. Second of all, you know what I'm saying? To where it's like, I'm not about to just let Marlon just sit here and take it all. And it started to snowball into me kind of saying something along the lines of, you always go real hard on him. You don't go hard on Grant, or you don't go that hard on me. You just really going in on Marlon. And the thing that stood out about that moment is she actually slowed down. And I don't know if I just like kind of like killed her vibe a little bit, but she just left. She just walked out the room. And Marlon I didn't even realize because I was going off. Marlon was crying and he came up and he hugged me. But being me, I was like, bro, get off of me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, you know, like that's just who I was as the brother, you know. But there's been multiple times like that where I feel like I try to treat everybody the same way. And I don't like bullies. I've never liked bullies. And so while we would have our differences, there was a lot of moments that I would hope, and I think Marlon could attest to where there was these moments where he knew that I would hope that he knew that the tough love was from a loving place. It's just like, bro, I need you to stand up. Like, I'm gonna do my part, but it's like I can't beat up everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can't fight the world. I definitely can't fight my mom. I think those moments let him know, yes, I'm going to go off. Yes, I'm going to hold you to a standard. Yes, I'm going to give you that tough love, but it's out of support and necessity. It's not out of, you know, it's not just me just being an asshole. So me telling you, get your ass up is not saying like, bruh, all them emotions are fake. It's me saying, unfortunately, the world doesn't care. And so it's like, I have to be the one to tell him that.
One day, I've always known you've always been protective of me when you want to be, when you can. For a specific moment that I realized, like, I honestly thought that me and Derrick's relationship kind of drifted apart, especially after I left home to join the military and we got older. But one moment that really just like solidified that we still had that connection is when he gave me a painting, because he knows my favorite superhero is Superman. I've always loved Superman since I was a kid. He gave me a painting of Superman saving a little black boy from being ran over from a train. And I'm like, okay, Derrick still does love me, like he's always have been, he's always will be. He like that just remind me, like, that is really solidified that this will always, that no matter what happened, Derrick will always be my brother, but one of my true best friends in the whole world, no matter what.
If I have to talk about one single experience, I would talk about this. It was the time when I was in my rock bottom, I think, and it was the most suicidal I've been in like my whole life. And I was kind of in the breakup phase of a relationship. It was not a good relationship for me because it brought out all the very like ugly symptoms from me. I was on the verge of like not wanting to live anymore. And the only thing that kept me going was every day in the morning, in the evening, when I had time, I would talk to my sister. And she would tell me simple things like, take a sip of water, or do you want to maybe get coffee today? And I would, and in my mind, it would be like, coffee? How can you think about coffee when my life is falling apart? But in hindsight, those were the things that made me think from one moment to the next. And in the bigger picture, that is the reason why I'm alive today. Because even when I was like so close to thinking that, yeah, I do not want to live, there was a small, tiny voice in my head saying, you know what, you're going to miss this. This is all not going to be there if you just decide not to be here anymore. And she was so much younger than me. And I was supposed to be the older sister, but she was my rock. And she used to like hold my hand and tell me things are going to be okay. And even though it's not going to be the way you think they will be, but they are going to be okay. And it was hard to believe her. And sometimes I was irrational and I was like feeling all my intense emotions and my judgment was clouded. And then she was the one who was there to tell me what is right from what is wrong. Like, there was time when I wanted to violate people's boundaries because I felt like I had to do it to keep my sanity in check. But she was the one who called me out and she was like, what you're doing is wrong. I mean, I love you, but you cannot do that. She has been the reality check. She has been the like comfort blanket. I don't think I would have survived it if it was not for her. I have never experienced that kind of help or that kind of shared strength from someone else before. You want to add something to it?
To her, it seemed like I was doing all of these things that, well, now when I hear it, makes me feel like I was like, oh my God, so great. But back then, it was very simple to me. It was like my sister, and this is a problem. Like the problem is coming between us, and so I have to just remove the problem. And like you cannot come in between my sister and her well-being and her health and everything. Even if I have known you all my life, you cannot. Like it was very easy for me to like separate any entity, anything that was causing her any sort of harm. So I just, it might seem threatening now, but I was very adamant about like you have to like remove that source from your life because otherwise it's not good for you, it's not good for me, and it's basically like listening to sense. And during that period that she was talking about, we also went on a trip, like a trip to the mountains, and it was like a very beautiful place and everything. But all throughout the trip, I saw her being miserable, and like we were in like very nice hotels, we were visiting great places, we were like paragliding and stuff like that. Like you were supposed to have the best experiences of your life, but I could see that she was not being herself, and she was like not in the moment, and she was like absolutely not having the time of her life. And that was when I realized that there is no point if you continue to associate with things that are not good for you. And I just told her that if something causes you that much pain and you believe that you need to have that in your life, then no, that's not the thing that you need in your life. You have to remove it immediately. And she tried her best after that, and she got better, and we got a dog in the next year, and things got so much better, and it was like a beautiful twilight phase. We went from this immense pit to this very beautiful hill, and it was very pretty. And yeah, that was very significant because for me it was nothing matters in between our relationship. You cannot come in between, and you're the reason this is happening, so you're absolutely out. And then that was very significant.
So something that made me feel closer to my brother and it helped me realize that I could trust him and stuff was before I got married, I used to be in a lot of dysfunctional relationships. And I was in this one relationship in my early 20s, and it was very unhealthy. There was always drama, and Shawn was always there to save the day. And I remember one of the last few major issues that I had with this person, we were living together, and they started throwing my stuff around and threatening to hurt me, and they wouldn't let me leave the house. And I was scared, and I called my brother, and he came over, he flew over basically and stood up for me and, yelled at this other person and helped me get my stuff and pack up, and he let me stay the night with him and stuff. But even during all of that drama with that relationship, he was always supportive of me. And he would loan me money because we were always poor. And it wasn't because we didn't make money. It's just because that person would blow their paycheck on stupid stuff. And so anytime I was short with, paying a bill or paying my rent, he would give me money, and he was just always there for me. And it made me realize that even though a lot of other people in my family weren't super supportive, he always was. And again, I guess that comes back to the whole thing of him always being the protector. In some ways, I kind of think he's more of a father figure than my actual dad, because my dad wouldn't have helped me like that, So that's how I always felt closer to him.
I did think of that same story she was talking about, to be honest. But even that one was later in life. Like she said, she was in an adult relationship. Mm-hmm. So I can't really think of a particular story that just really triggered anything. For me, out of the gate, like she said, when she was born, I was over 5 years old already. So I just remember being a little kid, seeing her as a baby and thinking, this is it. Now I'm the guy, I'm going to have to make sure that we're brother and sister, and I look out for her forever. So really more, it's a not one story that triggered us into a great relationship, but for me, it just started out as one, be the protector, be there for her, do things. And again, I don't always try to sugarcoat everything for her or anybody else for that matter, but especially for her, because again, the relationship she was in that she just told that story about, I won't lie, I hated it from the beginning, right out of the gate. I didn't like it, but I try to let her make her own choices. And if she needs somebody to fall back on to say, okay, you were right, I was wrong, now help me, that's what I want to do. That's the kind of person I am. So more of a lifestyle for me, not really just one story that really flipped the script for us, as far as I can tell. For me, it's just always being there from day one till the day I kick the bucket, and she's going to have to find somebody else.
I guess I'm going with you. I don't know. I'll climb into the coffin too. I don't know.
What advice would you give to other siblings navigating similar dynamics with a sibling who has BPD?
Just don't give up on your sibling. If you already have that relationship where y'all are close and y'all, truly are y'all can see as your friends, and y'all have a group together and truly love each other, just don't give up on them. There's there's going to be a lot of struggle. There's a lot of rainy days. Just know that they're still the same person you grew up with. It's just going through more difficult times right now. So yeah, just don't give up.
I'd say give them grace because you know that they're going through this condition. There's a reason to their actions. There's a reason to their response to their emotions. It's not just out of like pure anger, frustration, confusion, or sadness. No, there's something that they're going through. So give them grace and also have patience with them in the process.
Give it time. Because the thing is, you're not the one going through it. You feel me? They is. So if you let them do what they do and figure out their own coping mechanisms and actually allow them to exercise their own type of coping before you give them a whole bunch of ideas on how they should fix what they got going on and get mad because they're not listening to you, that's where you mess up at. That's where the confusion and the gap comes because they're not on the same timing as a regular person. You know what I'm saying? They have a different way of thinking. Their mind it moves at a different pace. So that's the advice I would give. Just take your time and don't get mad. At the end of the day, if your sibling, you love them, right? Show them you love them by taking your time with them. Period, point blank.
Don't take your siblings for granted. There can be supportive siblings, there can be like siblings you fight with, and there can be all versions of siblings in one whole person. But like what is important is to know is that just because they're tolerating our shit for a while does not mean we can pile it up on them from time to time. So it's important to step back and check your facts, practice your skills, even though it's your sibling and you know that that is a relationship that's probably won't be snatched away from you, does not mean that you should treat it with disrespect or like something that can be tossed in the bin, because it's a very special relationship. And I am guilty of taking it for granted, but it just requires as much dedication and kind-heartedness as any other relationship does. So, like, that's my advice.
For the sibling who does not experience the same mental disorder as their sibling, I would just say first, like, recognize how privileged and lucky we are to have a sibling in the first place. And like for us, I feel even more privileged to like live with her until like I'm 21 years old and I still live with her, and to have the privilege of being with the same person for so many years and witnessing their changes, sometimes their downfalls and sometimes their growths, and just to be a part of that journey, it's wonderful. And obviously, yeah, never give up, because it's incredible and they're gonna grow no matter what. Like, they're human beings, so they will grow and they will understand, and you also have to understand. Like, it has to be from both ways, it can't be from one way. Like, never take it for granted, and just to communicate and understand where things are going.
My advice for siblings who are dealing with a sibling who has BPD is learn to set boundaries, learn to show support and love for your person with BPD, but set those boundaries, especially if the person with BPD is having like super severe symptoms, because as hard as it is to have BPD and, you know, to have to go through all of the stuff that comes with that, it's also hard for our loved ones, including our siblings, you know? So you can show all of your support and love for that person, but also remember to support yourself and, you know, do what you need to do to not be hurt and taken advantage of, I guess. And I hate saying that because I don't want to be, I don't want to like sounds like I'm stigmatizing BPD. I'm just saying, you know, I'm remembering some of the ways I used to treat him and, you know, other people in my life who I loved. And, you know, it's embarrassing to me and it makes me sad that I used to do some of the stuff I did. So I just got to be honest. I think if you're a sibling or anyone else who has someone with BPD in your life, set those boundaries while also supporting them.
And my advice is this, as a sibling, I'm the one person that knows how all the other outside relationships, for the most part, can be. Extended family in our case. So I know what it's like to have a relationship with our parents because I lived in the same house. I know what it's like to have grandparent relationships, the aunts and uncles that we have in our family, all these different things. Other people in our family can't see it in the same way because they're the other people. They're the aunts. They're the grandparents. They're the moms, the dads. Only I can understand what she has to go through because it was the same way for me. That's not to say we don't have different relationships with our other family and our extended family. It's just that I know what she has to go through. I know what extended family thought of us. So I can help defend that. And again, hopefully be the person she can talk to because she and I see things in both ways the same way. Like, I know what my aunt says and does. I know what my parents say and do. I know what my grandparents used to say and think. We can see the differences in the relationships. She knows my wife well, so she can tell me, leave your wife alone in this instance, or, tell her what's really going on or whatever. So, like, it's just kind of one of those things for me that we can both see each other's relationships. And since we were raised in the same manner, we can help each other out both ways. She can help me just as much as I can help her. So my advice is just be there for each other.
All right. I got one more nugget of tough love. My advice is to hold them accountable. And by that, I don't mean to disregard anything that they're going through. But like I said, with me and Marlon's relationship, it was always like, how do we overcome it? You know what I mean? How do I help him become stronger than whatever he's feeling? You know what I'm saying? So that he doesn't miss out on something, whether it's like small things or like life in general. And so if you have a sibling that is having these emotions, understand everything that everybody just said. I agree 100% with what everybody just said. But at the same time, if you punch a hole in the wall, I can hug you. I could be like, hey man, I'm sorry you feel like that, but there's a hole in the wall. So I need you to fix that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when I say also with holding them accountable is, for those that have the big diagnosis with BPD, it's like, man, I completely understand that you have no idea, where your mood, where your emotions can go. But we also have no idea where your mood and emotions can go, and so we're playing the guessing game with you. If you had this like inability to control like slapping somebody, it's just like, I get it. It was out of your control, but you still slapped me. You know what I mean? So it's like, we still need to talk about that, and we still need to make sure, we're good. And it's almost like therapy, where it's like, it leads, by holding somebody accountable, it leads to growth, you know what I mean? And it leads to just an understanding of where my feelings are and how it's going to affect you, because all of our emotions do affect other people. And we want to have the best environment for you guys. And so if I'm talking to Marlon, it's like, bruh, of course I want you to be happy. You know what I'm saying? Of course I want your life to be positive. But, if something happens that's wrong, it's still wrong, bruh. You know what I'm saying? But me telling you that, next time you have this spell, you know where I'm coming from with it, which kind of ties back in with almost everything that I've already said.
Thank you so much to Grant, Derrick, Alicia, Shawn, and Madhuja for joining us today. This was a really warm, amazing episode. Thank you so much to our audience for watching. We hope you got a nugget of wisdom to take with you on your journey. Friday, we will be back talking about some of the coping skills the siblings use in their relationships to be the most effective. Sunday, we've got a BPD Bunch brunch episode coming out. And then next Wednesday, we've got our next discussion topic. If you can't wait until then, please consider supporting one of our top 2 tiers on Patreon. Our BPD buddies and BPD besties get exclusive access to extended cuts of our Wednesday episodes a week in advance. So next week's discussion topic, there's an extended cut of it available on Patreon right now. You can find more information on our Patreon in the link down below, and we will see you next time.